Hello, I'm Kevin Rambosk of the Collier County Sheriff's Office.
And I'm Chief Tom Weschler from the Naples Police Department. Working together with the Collier County Identity Task Force, we would like to provide you important information on identity theft. Nationwide, law enforcement uses Part 1 crimes to track crime trends such as burglary, robbery, and auto theft. However, Part 1 crimes don't include identity theft as one of those categories, yet the impact is increasing dramatically.
In fact, nationally, there are 12.6 million victims of identity theft with a monetary loss of $21 billion to $50 billion annually. And of the top 10 states for identity theft, Florida ranks number 1. Identity theft occurs every 3 seconds, more than 27,000 incidents per day. That's why we believe it's important to bring you awareness, information, prevention, facts on rebuilding one's identity, particularly if compromised.
We don't want you to be a victim.
Hello, my name is Lieutenant Chad Parker from the Collier County Sheriff's Office Financial Crimes Bureau. Today I'm going to talk to you about identity theft and what you can do to protect yourself. What is identity theft? It's when someone uses your name, your social security number, or some other personal, financial, or medical information without your permission to commit fraud or other crimes. Now, the number one way identity theft occurs is by stolen income refund fraud. That is where somebody uses your name and social security number to file a fraudulent income tax return purporting to be you. Many people have experienced this already, and what happens is you or your CPA files an income tax return, and then the IRS notifies you by mail that somebody has already filed an income tax return and collected a refund pretending to be you. That is the number one way that ID theft occurs today. There's not much you can do to prevent that. However, you do have to be a little cautious when that does happen, and there are preventive measures you can take, and we're going to go over that later. The second most popular way that ID theft occurs is by credit or debit card fraud. That is where the criminal obtains your credit or debit card number and uses it to make purchases without your permission. Try to use your debit card as little as possible. If your debit card number is stolen, the money is siphoned directly from your checking account, and that can cause a lot of problems for you. However, if your credit card or credit card number is stolen, that isn't your money. That is money for which you have been pre-approved to borrow. In either case, you have up to 60 days to identify and report the fraudulent transactions to the financial institution, and your dispute must be in writing. So we strongly encourage people to stop using their debit card as much as possible. Now, there's going to be times when you prefer to use a debit card. So we advise you to only use your debit card at places where the card never leaves your hand, such as an ATM machine or point-of-sale terminals. Point-of-sale terminals are those terminals you see at the cash register where you swipe the card directly and you do not give it to the cashier. A credit card is strongly encouraged to be used at gas pumps. Even though the card never leaves your hand, the criminals are very creative in putting what's called a gas station skimmer inside the pump, that when you insert your card into the gas pump, it reads the number, and then that number is stolen and used without your permission. So even though the card number leaves your hand, do not use a debit card at a gas pump. Use a credit card or pay cash. Obviously, restaurants, there you're putting the card in a billfold when you're paying the bill, and you're giving it to the server at the restaurant, and that card's out of sight, out of mind. Another one is online purchases. Even though you're safe and secure in your own home making purchases over the internet, and nobody's ever getting the card from you, we always advise you to make online purchases with a credit card and not a debit card, because you're sending your card number over the internet and you don't know who's receiving it. And when you do make online purchases, when you get to the page where you're entering your credit card information number, make sure at the top of the screen there's HTTPS. The S is for secure, and there'll often be a lock. Make sure the lock is in the locked position. That tells you that this website or that web page is a secure site, and you can feel a little more secure in providing your card number right there on the internet. Now let's talk about the common ways ID theft occurs. Dumpster diving. Criminals will go through your trash and look for any financial statements or anything with your personal information on it, anything they can glean from your garbage to steal your identity. So make sure that you do shred all your personal information, documents, bank statements, etc., and get a good cross-cut shredder to prevent them from putting it back together and obtaining that information. Skimming. A skimming device, like I mentioned earlier, that they install in gas pumps, is a little handheld device that they can keep in their pocket and just swipe your card through the reader, and it stores up to 2,500 to 5,000 card numbers, and then those numbers are sold on the black market. That's a very popular way that your credit card or debit card number is compromised. The third popular one is phishing. That's where you receive an email purporting to be from a financial institution that you may not even be a member of. They call it phishing because they send a blast email out with one of the more popular financial institutions in the hopes that you might be a member of that financial institution. The other indicators on there is that it's going to say, "Dear customer." It's never addressed to you personally. There'll be typographical errors because oftentimes these phishing emails come from overseas and the criminals use a Google Translator or some other program to convert the spelling into English. And then, of course, your financial institution is never going to call you, text you, or send you an email requesting any personal information. So probably the most popular one you'll see on a phishing scam is an email where the financial institution says you need to update your personal information, and then they want you to provide a login and password. When you do that, you're providing the criminal with your bank account information and they can steal all your money. This is probably the most popular way that your identity is stolen. And this just goes to show that we say it's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when your identity is stolen, because people are being paid to steal personal information from work. What that means is the criminals are approaching employees and saying, "Hey, I'll pay you $10 for every name, social, and date of birth you can provide me." And believe it or not, you've provided your personal information to so many businesses over the last 30 or 40 years, you don't know where that information is now. Financial institutions, banks, hospitals, all those places have your name, social, and date of birth on file. And those employees may be approached to see if they'd be willing to sell that information. And in the mind of that person being approached, they don't think they're causing any harm, but what they don't understand is they're basically contributing to your identity being stolen. So how do you prevent that? Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do there. You've taken all the preventive measures you can to try to prevent identity theft. So this is where we're going to talk about how to be vigilant and monitor your accounts. So how do we deter identity thieves? We have to shred financial documents and any paperwork containing personal information before you discard them, as we talked about already. Protect your Social Security number. Give it out only when necessary, and do not carry your number on your person if possible. Now, I do know that your Medicaid card number is your Social Security number followed by 1 or 2 letters, but just be a little cautious about giving that number out. If anybody asks for it, including a medical facility, ask them why they need it, and if they do, if you feel comfortable, then you can provide it. Do not give out personal information over the phone or internet unless you know who you're dealing with. Even if they say they're a family member or something along those lines, hang up the phone and call them back. You have to verify. Never click on links sent in unsolicited emails, and use antivirus software and keep it up to date. If you get any email from somebody that, even if you think it's them and there's that blue hyperlink saying click on this, you need to call them up. Believe it or not, I know it's a little bit of a pain, but you have to verify that even that family member sent you that email, because your family member or friend's email could have been hacked, and then they send you that hyperlink. When you open that blue hyperlink, you could be downloading a bad virus in your computer. Do not use obvious passwords like your date of birth, your mother's maiden name, or the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. Try to use an alphanumeric password, something hard for the criminal to figure out. Keep personal information in a secure place at home. And consider placing a credit freeze on your account. So what is a credit freeze? A credit freeze prevents credit, loans, and other services from being approved without your consent. That means nobody, not even you, can obtain any new credit without the credit freeze being lifted. In other words, let's say you place a credit freeze, you have to contact all 3 credit bureaus. If you're under the age of 65 or you're not an ID theft victim in the state of Florida, it's going to cost you $10 per credit bureau. Okay? When you call each credit bureau, that's $10, that's $30. Okay? They're going to provide you a PIN number. Do not lose that PIN number, because if you do, they're going to charge you $10 to replace it. And once that credit freeze is in place, nobody, not even you, can obtain any store credit, auto loans, or anything. If anybody tries to run your credit, it'll say a credit freeze is in place and you'll be instantly denied. But it's one of the most proactive measures you can take, because it prevents the criminal, if they do steal your identity, from opening any new accounts without your permission. Now, what you can do is place the credit freeze on, and then if you decide to lift the credit freeze because you decide to obtain a loan or what have you, you have to notify all 3 credit bureaus and do what they call lift the freeze or thaw the credit freeze. They're going to charge you $10 per bureau for that. And then after you obtain the loan that you wanted, you can call them back and put the freeze back in place with all 3 credit bureaus. They don't charge you to put the freeze back in place. Now, as I stated earlier, if you're a resident of the state of Florida and you're 65 years of age or older, this credit freeze service is absolutely free. And I believe it is one of the most underutilized services that our residents of the state of Florida are taking advantage of. So please consider placing a credit freeze on your account if you're 65 or older and you're a resident of the state of Florida. Once again, you'd have to contact all 3 credit bureaus on your own, and that is Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Now, if you're also a victim of identity theft, meaning you have an identity theft report, you can get that credit freeze service for free as well. You're going to have to show proof that you are a victim of ID theft, though. So how do we detect suspicious activity? These are just some things to do to try to see if maybe you're a victim of ID theft. But what you want to do is look for mistakes on your bank, credit card, or other accounts. If you can, go paperless. Get your bank statement sent to you electronically. That cuts down on the possibility of mail being stolen from you or criminals dumpster diving. Look for mistakes on the explanation of your medical benefits from your health plan. If your regular bills or account statements do not arrive on time, be a little nervous about that. If there's bills or collection notices for products or services you never received. If you start receiving calls from debt collectors about debts that do not belong to you. If you receive a notice from the IRS that someone used your Social Security number. If there's mail, email, or calls about accounts or jobs in your minor child's name, that could be an indicator that your child may be a victim of ID theft. If you receive unwarranted collection notices on your credit report. If businesses turn down your checks, or you were turned down unexpectedly for a loan or job. Those might be some indicators that you could be a victim of ID theft. So what we really encourage everybody to do is monitor your credit reports. Federal law entitles you to 1 free credit report every 12 months from each of the credit bureaus. As I stated, there's 3, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, which means that each credit bureau has to give you a free report every 12 months. In other words, you can get a free credit report every 4 months for free. The website that you go to, which is authorized by the federal government, is annualcreditreport.com, or you can call them at 1-877-322-8228. Review your financial statements, review account activity, and look for any charges that you did not make. And we want to defend against ID theft as soon as you suspect it. If you believe you're a victim of identity theft, you can place a fraud alert on your credit accounts and review your reports. So let's say you believe you fell victim to a scam, or maybe somebody compromised your credit card number or something along those lines. You can contact any one of the 3 credit bureaus and place what's called a 90-day fraud alert. If you place that fraud alert in place, the annualcreditreport.com will grant you all 3 of your credit reports at no charge, regardless of the fact that you might have received your free report within the last 12 months. But you have to place the fraud alert in effect first. Okay? Now, when you do place that fraud alert, you're going to provide point of contact information, meaning that if anybody, including yourself, attempts to obtain any type of credit, it's going to be placed in a suspended status until contact can be made with you, which might be a couple of days, to verify it was you that tried to obtain the new credit. Okay? Now, let's say you are a victim of ID theft, and you know it, you make an ID theft report. You contact any one of the 3 credit bureaus, and they will place this fraud alert on your account for 7 years. Okay, so let's say you place the fraud alert and you've reviewed your credit reports. You want to look for inquiries from companies that you have not contacted, accounts you did not open, and debts on your accounts that you cannot explain. Close any accounts that have been tampered with or established fraudulently. Call the security or fraud departments for each company where an account was opened or charged without your okay. Follow up in writing with copies of supporting documents. You can use the ID theft affidavit at the Federal Trade Commission's website, ftc.gov/ID theft, to support your written statement. And ask for written verification that the disputed account has been closed and the fraudulent debts have been discharged. Keep copies of those documents and records of your conversations about the theft. And we want to defend against ID theft as soon as you suspect it.